Hello students. So today let's discuss the subject that is management concepts and organizational behavior. I, Dr. Priya Raj Butolia, Assistant Professor, Bora Institute of Management Sciences. Today we will deal with the topic that is transactional analysis. Transactional analysis is a topic related to human psychology. In interpersonal skills, transactional analysis plays a very crucial role. So let's discuss it. Today, the topics to be covered are the introduction of transactional analysis, the concept of TA, and lastly, the segments of TA. So, let us discuss them in detail. What is transactional analysis? The study of human behavior is very complex and complicated. To study interpersonal relations in an organization, transactional analysis is one of the basic approach. Transactional analysis was developed by psychiatrist Eric Berne. Is a form of modern psychology in 1950 that examines the person's relationship and interaction. Now, what is TA all about? When we see related to human behavior, which is quite complex and complicated, when we interact with each other, it is actually the state of mind in which the other person responds. So, in transactional analysis, basically we deal with the interpersonal relation skills. It was developed by Eric Berne, who was a psychiatrist, and he has actually developed the concept of transactional analysis. In transactional analysis, human behavior is basically affected by the perception, learning, and the personality, motivation factors of an individual. Our behavior is also affected by the behavior of the other person. So, here TA plays a very crucial role. It also helps in studying and controlling the human behavior. In a single person, we have different people involved or included in this. When we respond to a certain person, it all depends on the state of mind in which we are there. In that mode or in that state of mind, we give or we reply to the other person. So, this is basically all about TA. Now, let us see the concept of transactional analysis. Transactional analysis helps to understand their own and others' behavior. With the help of TA, we can analyze and we can judge our own behavior as well as the people who are around you or with whom you actually interact. It is based on the theory that each person has three ego states, that is the parent ego state, the adult ego state, and finally the child ego state. So, whenever you interact with some other person, you always have to take into consideration the three ego states of individual personality. It can be in the form of parent, it can be in the form of adult, or else it can be in the form of child. So, these three states we are going to study in transactional analysis. It helps in identifying the ego state of each individual, to understand their behavior and altering them to solve the emotional problem. TA basically helps us to understand the ego state of the particular individual, and it also helps to solve their emotional problems if they face any. So, with the help of TA in psychology, we deal with people, we deal with human behavior, as well as we can understand and control those aspects. The main objective is to provide better understanding of how people relate to each other so that they may develop improved communication and human relations. Now, the basic objective of transactional analysis is understanding why the person behaves in a similar way, why the reason he or she interacts or have said you in such a manner, and it also helps you to improve your communication and your interaction skills, your human relations. If you have a proper control over all these three ego states, you can actually improve your interpersonal skills. So, let us discuss this one by one. In TA, we have to deal with the 7 segments. The first segment is about the structural analysis, in which we are going to study about the ego states. The second is the transactions between the ego states or between the two people. Third is about the life positions, that is the self-confidence and confidence in others. Fourth is the strokes, that is recognition of others' presence. Fifth is the stamps, that is the study of collection of feelings. Time structuring, that is the way of spending time. And lastly, the script analysis, which is the study of life plan. So, we will be discussing one by one. So, let us start with the structural analysis. In transactional analysis, Bernie has believed that when we interact with other people, our state of mind affects what happens. He says that there are 3 states of mind in every human being, no matter how old he or she is, and this is known as the ego states. It has been previously discussed that in a human behavior, we can see 3 states of mind. Whatever his age, whatever his or her age may be, the person has all the 3 ego states in a particular personality. Sometimes we are in a parent ego state, sometimes we behave in an adult ego state, and sometimes the same person reacts in a child ego states. So, our psychiatrist has developed the 3 ego states in a personality concept. Now, what is all about the parent ego state? Now, the parent ego state refers to the behavior and attitude of an emotionally significant individual who acted with quite a maturity when he was a child. Now basically parent ego state में एक individual जब react करता है, जब interact करता है या बातचीत करता है, तो वो हमेशा एक emotionally stable personality से बात करेगा, with a particular maturity से बात करता है, and जब वो अपने बचपन में when he was or she was a child, he has that sort of maturity in his life. So when that person will react with you, he will always follow the parent ego state. He possesses the parental traits of being overprotective, dogmatic, distant, indispensable and upright. He also behaves very ridiculous at times. These people tend to talk to other people and treat them like children. So generally in the 3 ego states, the first is the parent one. In this, the individual is very mature, very sensible, and he always wants to treat the other person as he or she is a child. He always wants to be overprotective, very caring, very indispensable, very upright, and sometimes he can be very judicious at time. Now in parent ego state, we have 2 categories. The first is the nurturing parent and the second is the controlling parent. Now as you can see, your parents even, they sometimes behave very controlling, like you don't do these things, you don't do that things, and sometimes the parents are in nurturing attitude. So this is same in the ego states. Like in nurturing parent, they behave like very caring, very loving and very helping. Whereas in controlling parent, they are somewhere criticizing, reprimanding, censoring, punishing, etc. You can also see that some of the parents might say to children, never talk to strangers, talking to stranger is not a good thing, or they may say that always chew with your mouth closed. So everybody has a certain set of instructions from their parents, from their born and brought up. So sometimes in parent ego state, the person can behave in nurturing position, and sometimes in the same state he can behave in a controlling position. An example of the parent ego state can also be is that you always stop the other person from doing certain things, or you always advise the other person as you feel that you are elder or having a much experience than the other one who you feel that he or she is a child to you. The next is the adult ego state. This ego state is basically based on logical thinking, reasoning ability of an individual. The person behaving or interacting with adult ego seeks with all the information properly, validate it using its reasoning skills, and then provide it to the other people. In adult ego state, actually the person is very logical, very rational in thinking. जब भी वो बात करेगा, whenever he talks or whenever he interacts, there is a particular valid reason for it. His all the thoughts are based on particular logical thoughts and on particular sense. So whenever the person is on adult ego state, he is very mature, and whenever he'll talk to you, he'll behave with you, he'll always seek some particular information and then only he'll interact with you. So like an example, if Atul wants to go to his aunt's house and he doesn't know exactly where the house is, so he might go for a Google map on his road, on his Ola or Uber cab, and he may even see the route wherever his aunt stays. By locating the particular address, he may reach to the particular destination very easily. So here Atul has behaved in a proper logical sense, reaching his aunt's house. So this is an example of adult ego state. Now let us see the last, that is the child ego state. In this state, the person is actually illogical. She takes or he takes very quick decision to satisfy the immediate needs without thinking much about its consequences. As you all know, children behaves very maturely, very illogically. Whatever they demand for, they just want it. They never have a particular sense before asking certain things, and they quickly take the decisions whatever they want or whatever they need, like satisfying their immediate needs. They even do not think about the consequences, like is it going to give a bad result or a good result. So in this state of mind, the person actually behaves like a child, whatever he or his or her age may be. It is not like in the early, like teenagers, or in the age up to for 15 years you behave very immaturely. Sometimes very old people even can behave can show immaturity when they have certain child ego state. So it is not an age factor. Whatever your mindset or your condition is, you can behave in any of the ego states while having a conversation with the other one. Now there are three categories in child ego state. First is a natural child, second is the adaptive child, and third is the rebellion child. Now natural child is basically he behaves very naturally. The child ego refers to the state of mind when he behaves illogically, right, and he takes quick actions. But in natural child, he is very curious, very creative, he is very open, he is very loving. So natural child is basically the child who are born and brought up with certain care, and they react in a natural manner. Second is the adaptive child. The adaptive child are basically the trained ones, those who are very well trained by their parents. They have a sense of guilt, afraid, depressed, anxious, prideful, trying to please everyone, or you can get that picture. So these childs are the adaptive child. Last is the rebellion child. Here rebellion child is always against everything. He behaves in the opposite manner whatever you say, like he or she may show anger, fear and frustration. So we have dealt with the three ego states. The first one is the parent ego state, second is the adult ego state, and the last is the child ego states. Let us see where these states have actually came from, where the state has occurred. These states have been occurred from the Sigmund Freud psychoanalytical theory, which was given by Sigmund Freud. He has actually described that in a human psychology related to personality, we have three phases of three states of mind. The first is id, second is ego, and third is super ego. In id state, generally we are in a child phase. We behave very unconsciously. We do not know what is right and what is wrong. It is actually based on your instinct. The second is the ego state, which is based on reality, logical reasoning and facts, which is said to be the adult phase in transactional analysis. And the last is the superego. The superego in the fluid mental state is based on morality, and in TA it is known as the parent ego states. So basically the TA is derived from Freud's mental state. He has categorized them as id, ego and superego. In transactional analysis, the same things are categorized into child, adult and parent. Now let us see the interaction between the three ego states. When individuals communicate, their ego states interact to create transactions. Whenever two people interact with each other, the one may be in another ego state and the second one can be in same or in different ego state. If the ego state interacts and blend in a healthy way, transactions tend to be healthier. If both the people are at a similar status or the similar ego states, the conversation may be healthy, but sometimes the conversation may lead to a disaster. So this is all based on your ego states. But sometimes ego states can contaminate each other to create a distorted view of the world. Now, the transactions have been categorized into three forms. The first is the complementary, that is a straightforward transaction. Second is a non-complementary, that is a crossed up transaction, and last is the ulterior. Let us see all these three transactions in detail. As you can see, the first is the complementary transaction. In complementary transaction, you can see that both the individuals are operating at the same ego states. Now here if one is asking how are you, the other one is replying good, how are you. So this is actually the state of mind in which the first person and the second person is interacting in the same ego state. Like if the first person is in the state of adult ego state, the second person is also replying in the same adult ego state. So here the conversation is actually very healthy, like how are you, and he has replied good and how are you. Here you can see that the stimulus and responses are actually parallel. Means you can see the arrow coming from A to another A adult ego state and same from one adult ego state to another ego state. Here the stimulus and response are in parallel position. You can also see 9 transactions between among the complementary transaction state. Like in 9 transactions हो सकते हैं complementary में, जैसे adult to adult, adult to parent, adult to child. This can be 3 transactions. Then we can have parent to adult, parent to parent and parent to child. Another 3 transactions are child to adult, child to parent and child to child. So in complementary, basically we can have 9 transactions which are parallel to each other, and you can create a very healthy relationship related to the complementary. Second is the crossed one, that is non-complementary. In the crossed or non-complementary transactions, basically the stimulus and response are not parallel. In the diagram also you can see when one person is talking to another person, he is in adult to adult phase, but when the second is talking to when the second person is talking, he is into the crossed state, he is into the non-parallel state. Like the first one is asking, can you, it is very expensive, the second person is replying, you cannot afford it. So here the transaction is basically crossed, the expected answer was not being given by the second person. So here the state of mind is actually not parallel, it has been crossed. So this conversations can actually distort the entire world of picture. So this conversation is actually not healthy in our general life. You can also see that the other person reacts in an unexpected manner. Here if it is been asked that it is very expensive, the other person says you cannot afford it. The other person can even say ki yes, it is quite expensive. This is a normal complementary transaction, but here the other person has used the crossed transaction which is not at all healthy. So this is the second form of transaction. The third is the ulterior one. Ulterior is actually about having a complex or double meaning statement. It is actually crossed, but here the response from the other person comes in the way that it has dual meaning or it has double meaning. It also has a hidden message. You can see that if one person is saying something, the other person gives the answer, but it can have two meanings or hidden meanings. It also says that two ego states within the same person, that one disguises the other. Here one person actually disguises the other. Like the question has been asked that one person says, you know a lot about this, don't you? The second person says, you think you know everything. Like first person is asking, do you know about this? But the second person says ki, you know more than me. So this is somewhat double meaning statement which is not at all healthy in terms of transaction. Now let us see another example related to the complementary and non-complementary. Like if a boss says ki you are late by 3 hours, I need an explanation, right? Now what the employees need to answer in terms of complementary. The employee will say or can say like ki sorry, I slept through the alarm and I will not do it again, it won't happen, I promise to you. This is a complementary statement. But in non-complementary statement or crossed up statement, the employee can say, oh, didn't you get held up with the same accident that was on the road? So here actually the expected answer was not right. The transaction was not at all healthy. So these are the three types of transactions. Now let us see the third topic of transactional analysis, that is life positions. Life positions is thus an interesting theory that brings attention to our psychological pattern of thinking, feeling and behaving. Life position actually tells about the thinking, behaving and feeling pattern of a human character. Our decisions are based on the responses we receive from parents or parental figures. Now here life convictions are formed in such a way, they are formed in a box pattern. Now here we will discuss the life conviction like I am okay, you are okay. That kind of feeling which I have already seen in Johari window, it is somewhat similar to that. Now here you can see that the combination of assumptions about self and others is known as life positions, and here we have discussed 4 life positions of an individual. Now when we discuss about the attitude towards self and the attitude towards others, these all 4 combinations occur. The first combination is I am okay and you are okay. In this combination, the person is at very ideal life position. He is very positive in his approach, he is very happy, he is confident on himself as well as on others. So this is the very happy phase of life in which he thinks I am okay and the other person is also okay. The second is I am okay and you are not okay. In this life position, the person feels that whatever he or she does is right, but he do not trust the other person. He always feel that he has done the right thing, and whenever the things are not done in the right manner, the other person is blamed for it. So here he himself is confident whatever he do, but whatever the things are wrong, it is being blamed to the other person. The third position is I am not okay and you are okay. Here the person is very powerless. He or she feels very powerless and he always compares his life with others. He always feels that everything wrong is done to him. The last is I am not okay and you are not okay. At this phase, we feel bad about ourselves and others. We see the world as very miserable, and as well as we do not trust others and ourselves. So this is the life positions. Next is the strokes. The term stroke refers to giving some kind of recognition to the others. Strokes are exchanged whenever two people interact with each other. There are 3 types of stroke: positive stroke, negative stroke and mixed stroke. Positive strokes are giving the positive recognition to others like recognition, approval, pats on back or giving reward. Negative strokes are somewhere criticizing, hating or scolding someone. The mix can be the combination of the positive or negative one. Like in the example, the boss says to the worker, you did an excellent job in spite of your limited experience. Here, excellent job is a positive stroke and in spite of lack of experience is a negative stroke. So, we have the combination of 3. Point number 5 is the stamps. In transactional analysis, stamps are feelings that are collected at the end of a transaction. One can collect stamps from oneself or from others. When sufficient numbers of stamps are collected, they can be encashed as a prize. And generally, there are 2 types of stamp. One is golden and another one is brown stamp. Now, actually, what is stamp all about? Stamp is the feeling what you get collected at the end of the conversation. Like when you have been interacted with your boss and the boss have scolded you for certain things. Here you might feel depressed or you might feel guilty at your level. When you reach home and you see your pet, the same anger and the same frustration you take out on your pet. This is basically the stamp you have collected from your boss and the similar stamp you have reflected on your pet. So, collecting a stamp is not actually a good process. You should then and there relieve your stress or your feelings. Whenever you feel bad or you feel good, you should react in that particular situation only. You should not collect stamps on your long term basis. Sometimes you can have white stamps, sometimes you can have even red stamps. Red stamp stands for feeling of anger, while white stamps stands for self-justice. So, collection of stamp is a part of our conversation or interpersonal skills. Time structuring. Everyone needs strokes. One can get the desired stroke by structuring one's time properly. Time structuring helps to achieve boredom and is a basic hunger in human behavior. So, structuring of time is very important part in transactional analysis and it helps to get the proper stroke. Games are also a part of time structuring. When people fail to get enough stroke at work, they try to play in a variety of ways and these are basically the psychological games. So, in organizations also you can see people playing n number of psychological games in hurting people or disrespecting some people. So, that is actually a not good part of transaction. And last is the script analysis. A person unconsciously decides in his childhood what he wants to do, what he wants to become and this decision unconsciously affects his feelings and he gets involved in it and such decision is called as the script of lifeline. Under script analysis, a manager takes efforts to know about the life plans of an employee so that he can help them analyzing these plans. So, script analysis is the last part of transaction analysis. So, today students we have dealt with transaction analysis with 3 main ego states, that is parent, adult and child and their interaction pattern which should be very healthy and this actually affects your life. So, thank you students.